The meeting will come to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Iannarino?
Here.
Bordard?
Here.
Kane?
Here.
Khan?
Here.
Smolka?
Here.
Shupai?
Here.
Long?
Here.
The mission of School District 15 is to produce world-class learners by building a connected learning community.
This evening, we're privileged to have students from Thomas Jefferson School here to lead us in the pledge, and their principal, Mr. Larry Sasso, will introduce who's here with us tonight.
Good evening, President Shupai, Dr. Thompson, and the rest of the school board. My name is Larry Sasso. I'm the principal here at Thomas Jefferson, and I have with me Mrs. Tammy Wilson, a fifth grade teacher who sponsors our video production crew, and Mrs. Riemann, my assistant principal. She's out there somewhere, hopefully finding a couple other students. Okay, she just waved. All right, so we did have a few other students that weren't able to make it. But these students right here have been involved with video production crew here at TJ for several years. So we have Bennett, Jessica, Lauren, Taylor, Maya, Lori, Bandana, and Megan. So they will be leading us in the pledge. First, I'm going to have Mrs. Wilson say a few words.
We enjoyed the opportunity to start each Students' Day at Thomas Jefferson in a positive and uplifting way. And with that, last year we wanted to present
the 3 I's in 5. Information, ideas, and inspiration.
And this year, we have the mission to
Aim for the stars. Our mission is to announce, intrigue, and motivate.
And they really do a wonderful job starting off our mornings here at TJ. So if we could have everybody please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, students, thank you very much for coming. We've got a light up pen here for you for coming tonight, and hopefully this will inspire you to keep doing a good job. You know, kids, if you want to go out the side door here, it might be easier to get to the back. And you can meet your parents out in the hallway.
I'd like to say something real quick. It's impressive how many people are here, and I have to say it's really nice how many people are here. Having been to quite a few board meetings, it's pretty rare to get this many people in the room. I know that there is representation from ESPA, and it is big and bright and very beautiful. And we appreciate that you all have worked hard all day and have taken time out from your families to be here and to speak with us. In light of respecting your free time also and knowing that you'd like to get home to your families, and also to keep us from having a visit from the fire marshal, which would not be a good end to this evening, we are going to move public commentary up to right after Mrs. Bland and Mr. Sasso are finished. So in light of that, if you are intending to fill out one of these forms and speak, please get it done and pass it up to Mrs. Becker before then, and you'll be called to speak then. And once again, thank you guys for coming. Really, it's an incredible show of support.
Well, Mrs. Shupai and Mr. Spolka asked that we highlight a couple schools because most of you have full-time jobs and can't get to the schools, particularly when they're in session. And so tonight is our first two installments of snapshots into two of our schools. And so we're excited that each meeting we'll have two schools come and just tell you a little bit about their school, give you a little bit more insight. And so tonight we've got Mr. Sasso from Thomas Jefferson and Mrs. Bland from Paddock. So
All right.
over to you two.
Thank you for having us. I'm going to start off and just talk a little bit about myself. So I have been in the district for 13 years. I started in the district as an assistant principal at Willow Bend and Sanborn, and then I have been the principal at Paddock for the last 3 years. Some fun facts about my school. I have about 700 students. We have about 45 to 60 new students in my building every year and about 80 staff members. We have the bilingual self-contained program in our school, and we have 2 full-day kindergarten classes this year and 2 first and second grade classes. And then just some fun facts also, we have the Kids Hope program in our building, and that is a mentoring program where mentors meet with students once a week, and they build relationships with our kids, and it really changes the students' attitude, behavior, and academic performance in our building. So this is our 3rd year with the program. The first year we had 8 mentors, and going into our 3rd year we have 15. So we're really excited about that, and our mentors have become part of our community. So they come to a lot of our events, they volunteer at our school, so it's really exciting for our kids and for our community. The other program that we have is an arts program, and Mr. Zielinski is one of our art teachers, and we have a drama club and also musical performances every year. And when I say musical, you might be thinking like a 45-minute, music performance. This is a 2-hour performance with 2 sold-out shows on a Friday and Saturday afternoon. We've done The Wizard of Oz, Sleeping Beauty, Alice in Wonderland, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And we're working on what the next one is for April. So maybe you guys can come out and see, our musical. We also have a scholarship program, so that's an Art Legacy Scholarship, and we raise money throughout the year. And last year we gave a student $2,000 who was going into the arts in college. So that's very exciting for us as a Palatine student. So that's just a little bit about Paddock School. Larry, on to you.
So a little bit about me. This is actually my 7th year as the principal at Thomas Jefferson. Prior to that, I was a principal in Lincolnwood at a middle school for 10 years. Our fluctuation, our student population enrollment has fluctuated between the low 500s to this year we're at about 450. That's been over the last few years. We have several different programs at our school as well. Similar to Paddock, we also are a bilingual site. We also have 4 special ed district self-contained classrooms. So we actually have students from all over the district, from Arlington Heights to Inverness to Hoffman Estates and Rolling Meadows. All of our students attend Carl Sandburg School, and there's several things that I would like to highlight about our school. We too also have a Kids Hope program. Sorry, Rachel, but we were the first school in the district to have it. And that was 7 years ago when I started. There were a few principals that came and listened to this presentation, and we just thought it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for our students. So we estimate over the 7 years I've been there, we've had at least 25 students that have had mentors, many of them for 3 or 4 years straight with the same mentor. So it just talks about the commitment that these mentors have in the program and what it does for our kids. Secondly, all of our teachers really partner with our community to really create well-rounded students. Certainly, they leave TJ well prepared for junior high and beyond. But one of the things we pride ourselves on is helping all of our students with creating a sense of community, an understanding of empathy, and an understanding of others, especially those that are less fortunate than us. For the past 4 years, at least, 2 of our teachers have spearheaded a Choose Kind campaign. Mrs. Landerman and Mrs. Kennedy are those 2 teachers that have sponsored our student council. And over the years, we've done many school-wide activities to raise awareness about other students, about families, about issues going on in the world. We've done Pennies for Patients many years in a row, raising money for cancer research. Last year, we did a One Book, One School, focusing on the book Wonder. We raised money for that organization as well. And now just recently with the hurricanes, we put some effort into raising money to give to Red Cross to support those people that have been affected by the hurricanes. Just in the last 2 weeks, TJ's raised over $3,000. And we estimate And we estimate that over the last 4 years alone, we've raised over $20,000 for different organizations. So our students really leave with an understanding of the importance of giving and what that means to others. So we're very proud of that. Thank you.
We will now open our public commentary period. If anybody is inspired, I know it's just a couple minutes since I said this already, but if you're inspired to fill this out, bring it on up. Please remember that this is not a dialogue between you and the board. If you have a specific issue which requires a response, Superintendent Thompson will get back to you. That said, I will also briefly address some of the concerns and the things that are mentioned and commentary at the end of the public comment period. So if you're interested in a response, I will try to respond to some of those things immediately. Please state your name and identify any group that you represent. Limit your remarks to no more than 5 minutes. And if somebody has previously articulated something that you have planned to say, please move on to your next thoughts so that we can have the benefit of hearing everything that you have to say. Finally, avoid comments specific to any person, student, or staff member respecting that individual's right to privacy. This is not the forum to comment on personnel issues. Thank you very much. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. I think it's, Mr. Sasso made a comment about community, and looking around at the people in the room, one of the things I think is fabulous about D15 is how many people that we all know in this room, because there are so many staff within District 15 that come directly from our community that you can't help but know each other, which is something great about D15. All right, that said, Chris Winke.
Chris, if you want to pass something out, we'll pass that down. If you want to have a seat there at the microphone, that'd be great. Better get going, you're being upset.
Thank you, board members. Thank you, Dr. Thompson, for this forum. My name is Chris Winke, and I'm here today representing a concerned group of parents whose children attend Thomas Jefferson Elementary and are within the boundary lines to attend Sandburg. We've created an online petition with change.org, and we received over 500 signatures to this point. Last November, a very small community in District 15, we were hopeful and we were excited that we'd finally get a new junior high. We were hopeful that the travel times that our kids experience would be significantly decreased. We were hopeful that our kids would finally attend a junior high where the greatest percentage of those students would also be attending Fremd. We were hopeful that our kids would finally be able to attend a high school, a junior high, that would prepare them for the demands of Fremd High School. Unfortunately for our children, the referendum failed, and we are here with the same frustrations that we as a community have faced for many years. Many of you who are elected to this board were inspired to run by the manner in which the new junior high proposal was submitted and due to a perceived lack of transparency of previous boards. Unfortunately, however, the inefficient boundaries, lack of full-day kindergarten, overcrowding are still a reality in this district that needs a solution. It is our sincere hope that we would partner together to find a solution. I would like to highlight some of the reasons why we're requesting that the boundary lines be redrawn for the year 2018 and 19 for the kids who attend Thomas Jefferson. Travel times. I would like to draw your attention to the map provided that demonstrates the lengthy distance that our kids must travel every day. If you look at the map, the green line represents 5.6 miles to Sunland from Thomas Jefferson, the blue line 4.3 miles to Plum Grove, and the red line can represent up to 7 miles that our kids must travel on the bus every day to get to school in the morning. In many cases, in our area, that's a 45-minute bus ride. We hope that you find this travel time unacceptable and that a boundary change is necessary. An imbalanced student body, number 2. According to school records, there were 496 students last year at Sandburg, of which, according to district, only 20% attend Fremd. This leaves 80% moving on to Rolling Meadows, which, as we all know, is in a different district and a school with a different set of demands, expectations, and curriculum than found at Fremd. This 20-80 percentage equates to only 50 kids approximately per class moving on to Fremd. And that number is decreased even further when including the kids that are only Thomas Jefferson and not the kids north of Kirchhoff. Our kids are not only underprepared for the rigors of Fremd, but they're also at a disadvantage socially upon entering high school. It becomes more challenging for our kids to break into already established social circles formed in the other junior highs. We hope that you find this imbalance unacceptable and that a boundary change is necessary. Test scores. The latest test scores reported in the ISB school report card show that Sandburg is below the state standard in math. In science, however, when only comparing to Plum Grove students who all will attend Fremd and the few students who will attend Fremd from Sandburg, there's a staggering 12.9% deficit in science. These test scores have been dropping for over time and will take you more time to get to an acceptable standard. And while we agree that these changes are necessary, our TJ kids should no longer be left to fall through the cracks any longer. In fact, many of our honor roll students are required to take summer school before attending Fremd just to be on par with the kids who come from Sunwing and Plum Grove. We hope that you find these inequities unacceptable and that a boundary change is necessary. Overcrowding. The boundaries are ineffective and long overdue for a change. Recent developments for future overcrowding also seem to be inevitable with the proposal of up to 27 new homes going into the current Motorola site. We understand that this will impact future student populations down the line. However, we do not want our kids to remain in the same learning environment while this distant addition is made to our district. If a boundary change is tied to these future housing developments, many of our kids will be well beyond junior high and in some cases college. Our children who attend Thomas Jefferson have been at a disadvantage versus the Plum Grove and Sunland kids long enough. This is why we are asking that they simply have the same opportunities that their peers do upon entering high school. Thank you for your time and listening to our concerns, and we look forward to working together with you to come to a speedy conclusion that creates an even playing field for the kids at Thomas Jefferson as they move on in their education. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Duskowski.
Good evening, Board President Shupai, board members, Dr. Thompson, and guests. My name is Angie Jaskowski. I am a program assistant at Paddock School, and I'm also the president of District 15 Educational Support Personnel Association. I'm here this evening along with a great many of the finest, most talented, and dedicated education support personnel you will find anywhere. We together are among the very many talented people in the district who devote our professional lives to the children, the ones who work closely and hands-on with them every day, who instruct them and nurture them. keep them safe and secure, and make sure that their school experience leads to a lifetime of growth and success. Though we may not be the highly paid employees of the district, we are still professionals. Our work does matter. We are not less valuable than others. We are proud of what we do for District 15 schools and its children. In the next few weeks, our representatives will be meeting with you to continue discussions that we hope will soon lead to a fair employment agreement for us and the district. One that fairly values our work and does not treat us as less equal than others. Through our representatives, we commit to you that we will do our best to resolve the differences in a fair manner. We hope and trust that you will do the same. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mrs. D. First of all, I'd like to say that we greatly, the Board of Education, District 15, I think I speak for all of us in saying that we greatly appreciate and value the work of our support staff. We all know the important role that you guys play, and that our children and our community would not be what it is without the staff that are members of ESPA. You guys are an integral part of our team and an absolute core component of what makes District 15 successful. So don't think for a minute that we don't think that and we don't appreciate you. We appreciate you greatly. I will say that we have been engaged in conversations with ESPA in contract negotiations since February, from what I understand, which is prior to the seating of the board that's sitting here right now. So this has gone on for quite a while. I also know that the district provided its most recent proposal to the ESPA on June 29th, and as of right now, we are still waiting for a response to that particular proposal. In order to move things forward, of course, we need to move forward. We firmly believe that there's room on both sides to come to a good agreement. We feel confident that we can negotiate a contract that is fair and favorable to all parties. And we also want to make sure that everyone is aware that we do see ourselves as partners in education and partners in making District 15 better than it is already, and also in impacting the students of our district. That said, we are committed to reaching a fair and equitable end with ESPA, and we hope that it comes quickly. And thank you guys again for being here.
Feel free to leave and go home and get some rest for tomorrow.
You can stay if you'd like, but if standing room only doesn't make you happy, we won't be offended. Next up will be Katrina Kiefer, and if you'll just wait to start speaking until the noise dies down, that would be fantastic. I do like the shirt.
You like the shirt?
The shirts are, yeah. It's impactful. Mark and I were having a hard time swimming. I know. They're having a hard time swimming downstream. Yeah, it seemed like a good idea. Standing at the door until I realized it was like 3 minutes.
course, of course.
Katrina Kiefer? Katrina Kiefer. It's clearly a lot louder out there, Julie, than it is up here. This is like the Potter chair here. Okay. Good to go? Ready?
Please, yes.
Okay. Good evening, board members. My name is Katrina Kiefer, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my daughter, who is a third grader at Marion Jordan. This evening, I come to raise new issues about my child's education at Marion Jordan Elementary. As was discussed at the last board meeting, my child has had classes significantly over the target class size for her entire career at Marion Jordan. This year, I was very relieved that my daughter tested into the gifted program, where she has a class size of approximately 20 students. I'm very happy with the experience she's having in her homeroom class this year, which is a remarkably different experience than what she has endured the past 3 years. However, the first week of school, it came to my attention that all of the third grade gifted students were placed into the regular third grade classes for math rather than being given differentiated instruction in their gifted classroom. This was astonishing to me since the criteria for inclusion in the gifted program was largely based on math achievement scores, and the district website clearly indicates the program covers all curricular areas. That statement is apparently false. The district website should be revised to indicate that the gifted program does not include math, even though it is a substantial component of the criteria for inclusion in the program. Also, the classroom sizes that were provided by the administration last month for Marion Jordan third graders were not correct for math instruction. For the 70 minutes per day our children spend in math, my child has been sitting at a work table with 5 other children because there are not enough desks in a classroom of 33 children, not the 27 mentioned last month. This has been the situation since the beginning of school, nearly a month now. Initially, administration indicated that some children would likely be promoted to advanced math and move to a regular 4th grade class beginning this week. However, just like last year, none of the kids in the 3rd grade at Marion Jordan met the criteria to move to 4th grade math as the advanced math program is currently defined. The administration has put forth a solution in which an additional 3rd grade class will be added for math only at Marion Jordan. However, no change to the failed advanced math program has been communicated to parents. As far as parents have been told, students who tested into the gifted program will still be given math instruction in a regular classroom at a regular pace, even though the testing they completed last year indicated they need instruction in math that is appropriately paced. Once again, my child's needs in math may not be met. This situation is absolutely unacceptable. What is even more broadly unacceptable is the lack of concern about our children's education and lack of willingness by the administration to address concerns or admit mistakes. On multiple occasions, I've raised issues, and invariably I've been told that the district is following a process. But what I see are broken processes and no flexibility to resolve issues and no concern for the effective education of our children. The children sitting in these classrooms are not numbers. They are children, yours and mine, with varying needs, educational needs. And it should always be the top priority of the district to meet those needs. I've been told by the administration that they teach students to attack issues but go soft on people. But the administration is not going soft on people when they make my child sit through overcrowded classes year after year, reviewing material that she has already mastered, and being taught at a pace that is not appropriate for her.
I've been told that they meet students where they are, but have not seen it done for my child. I've been asked to be patient, but really it is my child who today was sitting in an overcrowded math class for the 4th year in a row that the administration is asking to be patient. Enough is enough. I'm asking the board to take 2 specific actions. Number 1, to investigate the practice of manipulating reported classroom numbers, since the published information is simply false with respect to my child's math instruction so far this year. And number 2, to address the issues with the flawed advanced math program that none of our students have achieved in the past 2 years, even though the kids have done very well on their standardized tests. Primarily, I ask the board to step up and do the job we voted you into office to do, to hold the administration accountable to the children, parents, and taxpayers of this district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kiefer. That concludes the public commentary section of the meeting. I'd like to respond to a couple of things. If you're in need of a more detailed response, you'll get a response from Dr. Thompson or somebody else on the administrative staff. But I would like to say that the 2 items that were spoken of today, one in terms of boundaries and the situation with busing at TJ, the other with classroom sizes at Mary and Jordan, and placements are issues that we are aware of as a board, and it is something that we are looking into as you look at goals for the year. We are a community consolidated district, as everybody knows, and as such, we believe as a board that we offer 20 great educational experiences across our schools, each one of which is valid and a valuable education and at the highest level. We also roll out the same curriculum, we use the same hiring practices, and our expectations are same across. So the goal would be that each school performs exactly the same. The reality is slightly different, but it is something that is being addressed. We've had some great meetings with the curriculum department in terms of what's moving forward with that, and to me, I'm very excited about what's going on with curriculum. The boundary issue and full-day kindergarten are part of our goals for this year. So it's not been forgotten, and it's certainly not something that we won't look into this year. It's to the best interest of District 15, as well as our students, to utilize our buildings and facilities at the optimal level and to ensure that each of our children has a great experience in elementary school. Thanks again for commenting, and we appreciate everyone coming out. All right, moving on.
Okay, we're going to begin tonight with a video created by our Chief Communications Officer, Morgan Delac, and it's a video of the beginning of school.
But also kind of excited to see what new people I can have as friends.
You know what? I've been teaching a long time, and I think this is my 21st year in the district. And every year, I wake up with butterflies in my stomach as well.
Good morning. Good morning. Excited because it's a new school and a lot of new people and switching classes now. It was my first time coming to a new school. Some of us are new, we like to have new friends, and maybe we're a little sad to leave our old friends. Hallway, and then you're going to the crazy hallway.
Just to have a really great year to, mature, to learn about junior high, learn about themselves. Inspiration is huge. They're going to get to make a list of the things that they're wondering about and they're curious about, and that will start our reading, and we'll find books and research this year that helps them along that journey, because it is a journey. They're learning all the time.
Have a great school year.
It's hard to believe we've been 4 weeks into the school year already, and that was a month ago, but off to a very good start and excited about what's going to happen this year in classrooms. So thanks, Morgan, for that video. Next item in my section is just to introduce a couple new principals in the district. We're extremely happy to have 2 new people leading our schools. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jason Klein. Dr. Klein comes to us from Maine District 207, where he was an assistant superintendent for technology. I don't know if that's the exact title, but that's what I said. Something like that, right? Prior to that assignment, he was a central office administrator and principal in Wheeling for many years, and he has a wealth of experience. And he came to us because he lives in the community, he's got a daughter in the schools, he cares about the children and the community, and he wanted to make an impact more directly on schools, and we're really glad to have him leading Winston Junior High. I've already gotten very positive reports about the school and how things are going, so keep up the good work. Amy Malinsky is the new principal at Jane Addams Elementary School. She served as principal at Kimball Hill for 4 years. She exhibited a lot of leadership during that time. There was pressed central office administrators and cabinet members that we didn't want to lose her, so we fortunately found a spot for her before she went on to someplace else. When Christy Samajedny left, we knew that we needed to have a strong person to fill her shoes, and Amy has done that. She's jumped in with enthusiasm, vigor. She's winning the respect of the staff, parents, and children, as well as their admiration. All the principals have welcomed her onto the team, and they're glad that she's going to make our team better. And I know that she's going to have a great year at Jane Addams. Thank you for joining the team. And just like our program assistants, you're free to go home now and relax so you can get up early to get ready to work. So. Mr. Luisi, would you like to go next? Are you ready? All right, okay. All right, the next item is a brief update on our student enrollment from Dr. Barbini.
Good evening, Dr. Thompson, President Chupai, and members of the Board of Education. This evening, I'm going to be providing you with a brief update regarding student enrollment, but I'd like to begin by providing the Board of Education with some context with respect to a legal requirement associated with enrollment reporting known as the Fall Housing Report. In the state of Illinois, the Illinois State Board of Education and the government has basically made it a requirement that as of September 30th of each year, we have to provide the Illinois State Board of Education with updated enrollment information. The presentation this evening, as well as materials that were shared with you in preparation for this conversation, contains fall housing data from the last 10 school years in District 15, and all of that fall housing information is readily and publicly accessible on the Illinois State Board of Education's website. I also want to point out that as with looking at enrollment at any one given time, it's a snapshot in time. We know that public schools are a dynamic rather than a static organization. And so as a result, the information that was shared or will be shared with you tonight is from September 1st, and we can anticipate and we should actually expect that there's going to be some variance between the information that's presented this evening and then what will be presented in October for the student assignment presentation, but then ultimately what will be appearing through ISB, Illinois State Board of Education, on their website after we submit our final enrollment transmission on September 30th. And so where are we right now? Well, as of September 1st, District 15 was currently serving 12,372 students, and the breakdown is 542 preschool students and 11,830 kindergarten through 8th grade students. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that the 542 preschool students, so ages 3, 4, and 5, are broken up or broken down into 188 students who receive special ed services at John Conyers Learning Academy, and then an additional 354 students who are enrolled in our preschool at-risk program, which is a partnership with our Early Childhood Developmental Enrichment Center, otherwise known as ECDEC. And so that is the breakdown, and this was also included in the materials as well. So if you were to ask the question, how many general ed students are enrolled kindergarten through 8th grade in Community Consolidated School District 15, the answer as of September 1st would be 10,442 students. Gifted students, so students that qualify for the Gifted and Talented program, 293. And then if we move on to bilingual self-contained programs, which existed in both Principal Sasso and Principal Bland's building and several others in grades kindergarten through 3. We're looking at 813 students, and then 282 students who require services, special ed services in self-contained classrooms. This number does not include general ed students who receive ELL services and special ed resource services in the general ed setting. It's just self-contained students in bilingual, gifted, and special ed.
Can I clarify that those students that only receive resource are in the regular ed?
Yes.
They're counted in the regular ed number.
So then, those students would be counted in the 10,442. So students receiving ELL services as well as special ed services are in that number, 10,442. And that is a dynamic, ever-changing number. So what does that mean in terms of our trends? In terms of looking at the last 5 years of fall housing information, which really are encapsulated between both sets of those arrows, I did include where we're at in terms of September 1st in K-8 as well as EC-8 there, just as a comparison point. But if we look at this information, and the blue line is kindergarten through 8th grade, the red line is preschool through 8th, we are experiencing a decline in terms of student enrollment in District 15. And if we quantify that a little further, we're looking at a decline of approximately 3.1% in pre-kindergarten through 8th, as well as a decline of 3.2% in K-8. And that ranges in terms of the number of students anywhere between 87 and 105 students over that 5-year window. Once again, I did not include this year's information in that, only because of the fact that we wanted to compare apples to apples and really look at September 30th to September 30th. Everything to the left of those points on the far right is all fall housing data. Once again, that's information that we submit to ISB, and it is available on ISB's website. And so I will be back here again in October with a team of other administrators to present student assignment information. And so what that basically is based on enrollment, how do we allocate our resources to meet the needs of the 12,000 students and then some that I'd previously mentioned. At that meeting, I'll also be providing you with an update of enrollment information as of September 30th to give you a closer approximation to what will be sent to the Illinois State Board of Education and included in fall housing for the 17-18 school year at that point in time. What questions do you have?
With the information that you send to ISB, does that include, that's just overall numbers, you don't break it down by classes or anything like that?
No, it's broken down by grade, but then, we also include information like gender, free and reduced information, students who receive special ed services, ELL services, etc.
So that's the information that they use to create the school report cards that shows all the demographics, ethnicity.
I also want to point out, because it was, there was a question about it in terms of the preschool, ECDEC in particular, whether or not they've hit their ceiling of enrollment at this point in time, and that's not the case. So they conduct child find activities for kids who are 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who are otherwise at risk. That's one of the factors associated with preschool eligibility in that find program. Poverty is one of the biggest indicators in terms of student eligibility, and in terms of working with their program administrators, they currently have room for 178 additional students. And so that was a question that was asked prior to the board meeting, and I just wanted to make sure to share that. And that speaks to the fluctuating nature associated with student enrollment. We typically scale up, especially in the pre-K areas as the school year becomes underway.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to more thorough analysis of enrollment next month. We're going to jump now to our guidance on the Open Meeting Act. We have our attorney, Anthony Luisi, here from Hodges, Luisi, Eisenheimer, Rodick and Cohn. And he's going to talk to us just a little bit about the Open Meetings Act and how we can avoid any misperception by the public of not following that act.
Good evening.
Thanks for coming.
No problem. Some of you familiar faces, other new faces, but again, I'm Tony Louisi. I am one of the partners at Hodges, Louisi, Eisenhammer, Rodick & Cohn, and specifically, what I came here tonight to speak about is a growing, trending issue in all of the school area, whether we're talking about students, staff, or what we'll be talking about tonight with board members, is the interplay of social media and the Open Meetings Act. And before I get started, I do want to state that this is a growing area of law, but there's currently not a lot of legal precedent out there regarding social media. There is about electronic communications, and that's kind of what we have to draw from when we're talking about social media. But just to give you a quick agenda for what I plan on covering tonight, probably we'll speak no longer than 10 or 15 minutes and then open it up to questions, but quickly want to review the applicable statutory language that comes into play when we're talking about social media and Open Meetings Act issues, and that is, what is a meeting, what constitutes a meeting. Provide you some information from the Attorney General's office. I did talk to them this week to get their input on the issue. Then offer some tips and suggestions to avoid pitfalls, and then open it up to see if you have any questions that you'd like to pose. And I'm admitting right now there may not be clear answers, but maybe we can draw from some of the precedent that is out there regarding emails, text messaging, and things like that. Before, though, I jump into the definition, I do want to acknowledge right off the bat the irony with this situation, which is that when a board member or several board member, in the interest of being transparent and engaging in dialogue with community members and each other on an open forum such as Facebook, or maybe under an article on the Tribune where you can comment, the irony that you would be limited by a law that is a sunshine law. That is actually, the intent is transparency. So just want to acknowledge right off the bat that is an irony with this situation, where you seem to try to be transparent, but then you would be limited by a law that actually furthers transparency. So what we're really talking about here is when a number of board members may engage in communication about district business on a social media website. And what we need to start out with, and many of you are probably aware of this, and if you have your school board member handbook that we provide, it's on page 23, what is the definition of a meeting? And the definition of a meeting under the statute is any gathering, whether in person or by video or audio conference, telephone call, electronic means, such as, without limitation, electronic mail, electronic chat, and instant messaging, or other means, and this is an important phrase here, other means of contemporaneous interactive communication of a majority of the quorum of the board to discuss public business. So that's a long definition, really three elements that we need to concentrate on, right? Number one, a majority of a quorum, so at least three of you engaging in. Number two, dialogue related to public business. But then number three, and this is the crux of the issue that we're going to talk about today, engaging in contemporaneous and interactive communication, because that's the issue when we're talking about social media. Is it contemporaneous and is it interactive among the board members? So number one, like I said, was very straightforward. If there's three or more, that's one element. Number two, if we're talking about district business, that's the other. But then the third is that contemporaneous interactive interaction. So what I had done is I looked at the opinions out there about emails, about text messages, and then I did call the Attorney General office to run some hypotheticals by them to see if they had any official or unofficial opinions on this issue, which they didn't. But they did talk through, and we did spend some time on the phone with them examining areas of the statute, other opinions, and getting some pretty good, at least unofficial advice from the Public Access Counselor Division of the Attorney General's office. So that's the division that deals with FOIA issues and Open Meetings Act issues. So number one that we talked about, and some of you are probably familiar with this, is the reply all rules, right? So when one board member is sending an email to several board members, two or three more, and then the other board members reply all, right? And it goes back, where we've found that
the Attorney General Office has pretty strict precedent on that would be considered a meeting if it was done in close proximity of time. We also had an example with another school district, I won't name who the district is, but where the board wanted to engage in working on a Google Doc together. Why don't we form a Google Doc where we can all come in, give our opinions, give input? And we did call the Attorney General about that. It's about over a month ago, and they said they viewed that the same as emails that would be going back and forth between board members. But again, they acknowledged a major distinction, right? Emails are private. A Google Doc has access to only certain people. But when we're truly talking about, at least in certain contexts in social media where it's open, they acknowledged openly over the phone that that is a big distinction that they have not analyzed yet. And they acknowledged that the law has been in effect long before social media took off and is probably not caught up yet. The other thing that I think is important to this issue that we explored with them, and there will be no legal precedent. There's not a case that you're going to find that says this, and there's not a Attorney General opinion that says it as specifically as I'm going to say it right now. But internally at the Public Access Counselor's Office, they have what's called the 4-hour rule. Okay, so, and that's going to what is contemporaneous and interactive. And they have held, actually the appellate court has held that the definition of contemporaneous and interactive is when the communication is existing, occurring, or originating during the same time. And the Attorney General has interpreted the same time to be within a 4-hour period of time. So, for example, in the email example I gave you, if one board member sent out an email to all the board members, 4 hours or more have passed, and then that's another board member hits reply all and sends back, they would find that that was not a contemporaneous interactive communication because of the time that had lapsed. And they do have some opinions on that with regards to email. So we explored that with the Attorney General, and they said they would not see why that would not apply to a social media context. So what I did next in talking to them is I said, can you give us some advice, can you give us some tips, and can we talk about some hypothetical? And the first thing that came out of the gentleman's mouth was, listen, proceed with an abundance of caution. Because this is a new developing area of law. There is no precedent out there. I will talk to you unofficially, but tell your clients, your school board members, to please proceed with caution when they are doing this on social media. So number 2, I read the following hypothetical by him. So there's a Facebook post made by a non-board member, and board member comments were directed at the commenter. So we've got the post, non-board member, board members start commenting, but are directing their comment to the poster and not to each other. He said in that situation, they probably would find that was not a meeting because they weren't interacting with each other.
Even if it was less than 4 hours in the...
Even if it was less than 4 hours. But then I pushed him. I said, well, when would we cross the line in that kind of situation? He said, well, if 3 or more board members were commenting and they started building off of each other, referring to each other, maybe commenting to each other instead of to the poster, that they could see that getting closer to the line and would probably constitute a meeting. So that was the first hypothetical. He said it gets even more certain if the initial post obviously is from a board member or potentially from a district-sponsored page. A lot of districts have their own Facebook page. They said that gets even closer to the line where if board members were commenting 3 or more, that they would find that that was a meeting. So I asked, well, what if we, and this is probably not practically possible all the time, but what if we knew there was going to be something online? So we did post, and we did have an agenda, and then opened the door and dictated to people where it would be, how they can access to it. And then he reminded me, and to the requirement, that at least 4 of the board members, right, a quorum of the board has to be physically present for a meeting. So with nobody being physically present at the meeting, he said that would be a problem. That would be the one thing. He said you can comply with the agenda, the posting, the minutes, access. He goes, but there is that issue of at least the quorum of the board has to be physically present. So again, he said it's probably not very practical either, depending on, you know, the spontaneous of the responding. So what I did then is I walked through some potential practical tips from probably the most conservative to what they would deem the most risky. The most conservative is going to be obvious. If there's 2 board members that have already commented on something related to school business, then nobody else should comment. The next, less conservative, would be the 4-hour rule. So 2 board members have commented within a 4-hour period, you wait until after the 4 hours have passed or a longer period of time, and then you comment. Number 3 would be consider responding, but not in the comment section. So someone has posted something on Facebook. Instead of going to the comment section, find a different avenue to voice your opinion, whether it's your own post, separate from that. You can message within Facebook to the person individually and tell the person, listen, feel free to share my message. And then the riskiest, but still he acknowledged, is probably not getting to the point of a meeting, would be what I was talking about initially, the hypothetical, right? Where we're not building off of each other. There's 3 or more board members commenting. They're within the 4-hour period, but they're not building off each other. They're not referring to each other. They're not commenting to each other. They are directing their comment to the poster, who would be a non-school board member. So, and he voiced that would be probably the riskiest, but still falling short of being categorized as a meeting. Another option that he came up with, whether it's practical or not, probably depends on which district you're in, is designate somebody that's not a board member within the district, a PR person, a communication person, to have that as part of their responsibility, where board members can individually consult with that person, share their opinions, and that person can go on and then share those opinions from one source. So with that, I wanted to at least spend my remaining time seeing if there's any specific questions that any board members have about this issue.
Well, I appreciate you coming, because we certainly don't want to be the precedent-setting district, and so this has been very helpful. How about questions?
So I have a question, just because going back to the reasoning for you being here with our Facebook posts. You said if you started a new post, so let's say we've got this theoretical Facebook page that is public and anyone can access it, and somebody posts something that is not a board member, and then 2 board members respond, but a 3rd board member starts a new post on the same page.
Oh, I was talking about starting your own post.
In a totally different place. So
On
my
your
Facebook page, it
personal
would be fine, but
page.
if I post on that same page, then in essence, we're breaking the rule.
You could be. Again, I got to qualify because there is no legal precedent, but he said that's getting closer to it constituting a meeting. And what I was anticipating is that you would go to your own personal page, voice your opinion, and potentially link it back. But there would be some distance. And it's going to the other rule where you're not interacting with each other, that you really are interacting with the member of the public that posted.
I guess the one hypothetical you threw out about if we posted, announced a meeting, but then didn't have 4 people present, physically present, so then it's not a meeting, but the whole question is whether we're having a meeting.
No, it would be a meeting, but it'd be an unlawful meeting. So there's a question of what is a meeting, but then there's also a question when there is a meeting, what do we need to comply with to make sure it's a lawful meeting? So you could have a meeting, right, without, that's the whole issue here. A meeting without an agenda, without posting, without minutes, with all those things that go along with what has to come with a meeting. So 2 different issues. What is a meeting? And then when you do have a meeting, what are the things you need to do to comply with the Open Meetings Act?
And what I'm hearing with that is the idea, and it was raised by somebody in the public at one point also, if we were to post and say that we would all potentially be on this shared Facebook page and therefore have just a long-standing posting of a we're all going to be together there, that would violate if 4 of us aren't together, physically together. But if we did that and then all came and hung out in my basement on Facebook, then we'd be okay.
Yeah. You know, you bring up, because...
Which would never happen, so.
But no, but you do bring up an interesting issue that I did ask. I said, so are you telling me, to the Attorney General, Public Access Council attorney we were talking to, I said, are you telling me that a board that is very, very motivated by transparency could not set up some kind of online presence where they're engaging with the public and each other, even if we did all the things because of the physically present requirement? But if you go on to read that, that's talking about the 7 of you as the Board of Education. The physically present provision also goes on to say that if there is a public committee that is subject to the Open Meetings Act, because I'm sure you guys know certain committees are subject, but that committee is purely advisory, can make no decisions, their recommendations aren't binding. They are not subject to the physical presence rule. So that could be a completely, without any physical meeting. But again, that body could not have any authority to bind the school board or make any substantive decisions. So the way I pose it is it would be like a transparency or a communication committee, which could have 4 or 5 board members, but it would just have to be clear that that committee is not have the authority to make any decisions.
But it still becomes a very slippery slope.
Yes, yes.
One of the other things about a lawful open meeting is that it has to be in a public place, a normal place. You can't
Not Lisa's
go to your
basement.
basement because most people wouldn't know how to get there, and you wouldn't really want a bunch of people traipsing into your house.
So it'd be hard to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with online, we could tell them, in that situation with the committee, we could tell them where we're going to be. And even, I posed this to them, we can even pick one of our schools and maybe post and have it up so that people that could not access Facebook, did not have, just could come to one of the schools and see the interaction going on online. I kept posing these things, and he found it very interesting, as did we, but there's no concrete answers to any of this. We were basically running hypotheticals by him.
No question, but just a thank you for recognizing that one of our goals obviously has been to be more transparent, but it's very difficult to do in the way that we would all obviously like to do it. And so I think that is tough, and I think a lot of people in the community don't know that and don't recognize that this Open Meetings Act kind of binds our ability to communicate and chime in together to make it sound like we are working together and we are all trying to be transparent and listen and communicate back. It's trickier than I think any of us realized.
Yeah, but I mean, you seem to be meeting the spirit of law, which was transparency. But the technicalities, as it often does, law runs behind the technology, right? So hopefully, maybe moving forward, these kinds of issues will crop up, and there will be a fix in Springfield where things like this will be exempted, but that's going through lobbying and going through Springfield to make
They
those
got
changes.
a couple other priorities they probably want to deal
probably.
with first.
Well, I think that the limitations, I've been there for a while, now it's just taking another forum in terms of how they apply to Facebook, but they've been there when people have wanted to do big public forums and big, meetings where there's a lot of back and forth between board members and the public. Same issues have really been there, and sometimes it's, that the Facebook forum certainly has some advantages, but it certainly has some serious disadvantages in terms of positive discussions regarding issues. And so I know that, there could be adjustments. I agree with you that the law always, lags behind technology, sometimes decades worth of technology. But let's hope that we get, the instructions that the AG's office gives are sometimes just kind of exactly how the way you describe it. Kind of like, here's an interesting thought, and it doesn't really help us too much, but let's hope that we do the right thing.
Yeah, and the caution with that, because we've had this happen, is when you do have those informal discussions, and then there's an actual case or controversy that hits their desk, and they look at it very closely, that those informal discussions will quickly fade away and they will issue a different opinion. We've seen that.
It's like it never happened.
Yeah. Exactly.
Whether electronic or actually in person, if 3 or 4 board members were to have dinner together, it's could be perceived as they're conducting school business. It could be after a board meeting when people are gathering, when board members are gathering, that it could be the appearance that board meeting business is continuing, and you just really don't want to have the appearance. And so I think an overabundance of caution is good advice.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me tonight.
Well, Tony, be glad to answer any other questions that pop into your head at a later time. Thanks for giving up your time with your family tonight and coming, and very, very
This
helpful.
came from Palatine Stables, so not far.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, we're going to regain our agenda list here, and we're going to go to our summer construction projects. And we've got Jan Taniguchi, our architect of record, here with Andrew, and they're going to talk to us about the summer projects. Well, he's waiting. I was wanting to share a few things about Paddock School. Paddock School is our second oldest school in the district, and it was some architect back there, not our current architects, but thought that a California-style school would be great for the Midwest, and not so much. It does have a couple fireplaces in it, but it's got wood-slatted roofs. It's a flat roof, and I think we actually have had a building, Craig, haven't we, that didn't have hallways at one time?
That's right.
Yeah, Kimball Hill School? Kimball Hill School. At one time, Kimball Hill School didn't have hallways. The kids had to go outside to get to the cafeteria, the gymnasium, everything else. So we have much more on top of things architects, and so Jan, thanks for being here tonight.
I'd love to do a California school for you. President Schupai, Dr. Thompson, members of the Board of Education, good evening, and thank you for inviting us here tonight. I'm Jan Taniguchi. I'm a principal at SDR Partners Architects, and I have with me Andrew Phelps, who's a project manager who is overseeing most of the projects this summer. We've prepared a very brief presentation to share with you some of the things we've been doing over the summer to address your life safety needs. But I'm pleased to report that the projects were completed on time and under budget, and they were managed well. I mean, it was a photo finish, but everything got done in time for school. Okay, I'll start out. I don't know if you can see, it's a little dark here. You can imagine, we had 10 and a half weeks to do construction, and that was one room over at Pleasant Hill School. You can see the amount of work has to go into finishing up a job, making it suitable for children. I'd like to recap. In 2016, we worked on 10 school sites in the Education Service Center. We chose the sites north of Palatine Road primarily to allow for summer school to happen south of Palatine Road. Similarly, this year, we worked on 10 schools, and they were south of Palatine Road so that the summer schools could proceed north of Palatine Road, with the exception of Sanborn School. And that was done this year because it was tied to the referendum in a certain sense last November. We also started work on Whiteley School, which is going to take 2 years to do. The first year, we put up some panels there, which I'll share with you. Let's see. The projects were divided into a lot of different groups, primarily to facilitate management by our construction manager and by us as architects, and also so you could get good pricing on the jobs. There were 18 prime contractors on the job. For instance, there are 3 general trades contractors. I believe there were 3 roofing contractors, 3 glazing contractors, 2 plumbing contractors, 4 mechanical contractors, and 4 electrical contractors. And this allowed good bidding, and it was sequentially bid to allow for that. We did have people from our office on site so they could focus on it, because this is a very nitty-gritty kind of intense type of work. The projects themselves, let's see. The intent was to complete, from the life safety side, the A items and the urgent items in the years 2016 and 2017, and associated B items. Sometimes you couldn't isolate them, sometimes they were tied together. For instance, we worked on toilet rooms. We had to all of a sudden upgrade to accessibility, so we completed it at one time. The project included site work that was to solve poor drainage and to address tripping hazards like in your parking lots or sidewalks, building envelope, keeping the buildings dry and warm, building egress, making sure that in the event of an emergency, people could exit the building properly, fire separation so the fire can be contained, fire notification or alarms. We also had some accessibility issues that I talked about, mechanical, making sure that you have adequate ventilation, plumbing, addressing galvanized piping, those failing in buildings, and also water service to buildings, and associated asbestos, those in part of pipe installation. In terms of schedule, we have to do a lot of prep to accomplish all of the construction 10 and a half weeks of summer. This, we learned from last year, we started about a month earlier, 2 months earlier in terms of beginning the project. You also bid the project a month earlier to allow for more competitive bidding. We also started construction on some of the non-invasive type of work, like fire alarm work that could be done at night. So we did that, and also the work over at the ESC, so it wouldn't interfere with education. Let's see. The project in terms of money, I said we had estimated the job when we did our initial life safety survey at about $13.8 million roughly, the work that we did this summer. The Gilbane estimated it at about 15.7, and the bid amount was 14.5. The 14.5 included allowance money to account for things that we might uncover during construction, which is typical for renovation work. Final costs, we're projecting about 13.6, and basically $900,000 will be returned to the district in cost savings. For Whiteley, we had a Gilbane, that's a exterior wall replacement, was initially estimated about 5.1. It came in at 4.7, so we seem to be on track with that one too. Now pictures, we'll share with you some of the projects. Conyers Learning Academy, the top left pictures involve fire separation at your cafeteria. Now it's used for a different function. We also replaced roofing there, replaced stair railings to comply with accessibility, also worked on some toilets. Willow Bend, we did some tuck pointing on the outside. The wall was cracking and had a lot of leakage. We also have some sealing of pipes for fire separation. Also did some toilets there. Central Road had a lot of cracking in sidewalks and ramps. We also replaced some toilets, rooms, and also some drinking fountains. Kimball Hill, this is what Kimball Hill looked like before we started. It had lavatories out in the corridors, which is great for supervision, but the Department of Health doesn't like that anymore and won't let you do that, so we have to put it inside. So we had to reconfigure that and also make them accessible at the same time. So that's what we did. Actually, the little picture there has to do with a back RPZ valve. We have to put those in so that when you mix chemicals in the janitor's closets, they don't contaminate the water. Carl Sandburg, we have a new chiller, also some new railings at the gym. We had a lot of door replacement, rusted frames, and also some mechanical work. Plum Grove, the upper left picture, was where we had a leaky pipe in a wall, so we had to take apart the wall to solve the leak so it wouldn't leak into the classroom. We also had some stair railings. The bottom two slides and pictures there refer to a new egress out of the music room to make sure that students could adequately exit the building. Gray Sanborn, the big picture refers to getting the water piping to come in the building and rise above the ceiling. I know in the past Mr. Phillips has had to deal with bursting pipes under the floors. We also changed the exterior stair, which was falling apart, and a hand railing down, replaced a planter that was falling apart and going down to the basement. We also did some waterproofing of the basement in the courtyard. Pleasant Hill, you see the furnaces to the upper left. Those actually are similar to what you have in your house, and they had one for each classroom, so it wasn't providing proper ventilation for the space. And so this is sort of the before pictures, and we have construction and after pictures. We used a VRF system, variable refrigeration flow system, and I don't know if you noticed there's new ductwork in the roof and additional units up on the roof, and that's what those pictures show. We also renovated the toilets because the sinks are outside to put them inside, which is required by the health department. Hunting Ridge, we did quite a bit of work on the site to make sure the lobby doesn't get flooded again like it always is. Had been flooded many times. Also, the upper right photograph shows a new water service coming in and rerouted through the library. Nope. A lot of hand railings. The big project, though, was the exterior wall of the building. This is the existing, what it looked like before we started. And we have pictures under construction and also the new curtain wall. It looks a lot cleaner and a lot nicer for the students there. We're very proud of this job.
I was there recently, and the teachers are lobbying for the new rooms because it has so much natural light.
Yeah, we put in a lot of large glass and changed some of the fenestration there. ESC had some roof flashing work done, also a new water heater, and also the toilet rooms were done. The toilet rooms did not have a drain in the floor and also were leaking, so those were renovated. Moving on, Whiteley, this is a project that's going to go on next summer also. This is existing. This is what we replaced. We have these phenolic panels that we're putting up in the building. They're warp resistant. And these are just some shots before and after, so you can see it looks a lot crisper. We don't have the deteriorating plaster nor and hopefully next year when we replace the glass portion, you won't have a lot of the stained windows in process. So here we are here. And you'll see more color on the building next year. So that's some of it, just some of the hint of the color. And that's all I have for you tonight. And we take interesting questions. He probably knows more about it than I do, so please feel free to ask questions.
During demo work, was there anything that was unsurprising or very surprising that you came across that you weren't prepared for that we might start to plan for in maybe some other buildings as we start to do demo work on those as well?
Not so much this year. We had a pretty good handle on, the most surprising is when you find asbestos. But we did well with Midwest Environmental was the district's consultant for that, and they did a good job of locating any potential, and it was taken care of.
Piping in Sanborn, the water service wasn't where we thought it was.
Yeah, it wasn't where we thought it was. So they did a little extra digging there. There were some broken pipes in the courtyard, storm pipes that probably were contributing to the leaks. Those were repaired at the same time we did the waterproofing.
You also run into things. We ran into a drain pipe that was running through a piece of ductwork in a building. So that we had to fix that.
Doing there.
Well, I think the $900,000 that appear to be left over from the bids show evidence that you worked hard to make sure that everything that you drew up was going to help us save some money, so we didn't have to use all those contingency funds, so I appreciate that.
Right. We tried to anticipate and also set the expectation level when we started the projects. I think we did plan it, started early, rethought about it, and I think it paid off.
Do you think going out to bid early in November, that allowed us to be well below the Gilbane figures as far as the bids coming in well under what they said they were going to come in?
I think you do, because more people are available to bid. I mean, it's a climate where it's very difficult to find contractors these days. So, the earlier you bid, the more opportunity you have, because otherwise they might be tied up with other work. And also, it allows you, in the event you don't get good bids, you can rebid it. You have sufficient time to still get the materials in time to do the project.
No other questions? Thank you very much, Andrew and Jan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So the next item on our agenda is a presentation by our Chief Communications Officer, Morgan Delac. She's going to talk about our recommendation for a contract with our website host. I will say before she begins that Morgan's done a fabulous job getting stories on the front page and social media exposure. She has worked very hard, and this is just 3 months or so into her employment with the district that she's already come with a recommendation, having researched pretty significantly what would be the best service for our school district. And so I'm really impressed with what she's done. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to address the board regarding this exciting new initiative to redesign the district's website and also add some enhanced communication features for our stakeholders. So before we get into the details of the proposal that you have before you today, I'd like to provide some background regarding why a new website platform is needed in our district. So our website is not only a place to house information, but it also serves as a powerful first impression for many parents, community members, students, and other stakeholders who may be looking into our district as a potential for their family or for a place to live. If the first impression of our district is one that is outdated and disorganized, that is often the impression that people assume for the entire district as a whole. And in addition, modern website design trends change so frequently that best practice indicates that we refresh a website every 2 to 4 years. And currently, our website has been in place for 6 years, or since 2011. So it is clear that a refresh is needed and wanted also in our community. My team spent several weeks interviewing different web post providers and determining what the best solution might be for us. And we did a lot of research about these different providers, who's been using them, and what types of services they might provide to us. And of those companies that we did interview, Blackboard came out on top for a variety of reasons. The design options were modernized and customizable to fit the needs of our district specifically. The platform allows us to condense many different areas of communication into one neat platform, including emergency notifications, e-newsletters, and teacher communication tools, which currently we use a different provider for every single one of those things. The translation tool with Blackboard was optimal, and a mobile application was included and personalized for parents to use. We also received premium support and automatic upgrades to the software as part of our service contract with Blackboard. In our interviews with all these other providers that I referenced, this amount of material and comprehensive of a package was not provided by any of them. So that was one of the main reasons that Blackboard stood out to us. In addition, Blackboard is the parent company of our current web host, which is Edline. Edline is sunsetting at the end of 2018, which is another reason that this change is needed. So because Edline and Blackboard are part of the same company, the migration of content from one to another will be much easier than if we decided to switch companies. And in addition, we were able to secure some better pricing options because we are sticking with the same company that we presently have. Blackboard is a very popular and trusted school web hosting brand with local clients like Valley View, Wheaton, Warrenville, Barrington 220, Lincolnshire, as well as many higher education institutions in the area and across the country. So I want to now dive into some of the package features that I mentioned before. We have a custom mobile-friendly design, which means that we'll design for the phone first, because we know people look at the phone typically before they'll look at the website on our desktop. So it'll be a mobile-first design. We'll have an integrated mobile application. Mass notifications and e-newsletters will be included. Teacher communications, and of course, training and support, which is essential when you're launching a new product like this. So now I'd like to go into detail about some of the different portions of the web hosting contract, starting with a mobile app. So a mobile app is something we don't presently have, but it's something that many districts are moving towards. Because of the socioeconomic diversity in our district, we know that not every family might have access to wireless internet at home, making traditional website access quite difficult. However, research indicates that in spite of any economic disadvantage, more than 80% of parents today have a smartphone with built-in web access. So we need to be able to cater to these people as easily as possible, and allowing people to view information about our district from a smartphone application will open the door to easier and more efficient communication with our stakeholders. And now the mobile application is not just another portal to view the site. For those with students in the district, the mobile app will also be personalized to allow access for parents to view student grades, pay fees, check the status of their school bus, and more. So it'll remove the requirement for you to go onto Tyler and pay your fees or check your grades, which we know is not always the most friendly application. You can do all of that through this web app, this mobile app. So mass notifications. Presently, our district uses one provider for emergency notifications known as School Messenger, and we use Constant Contact for mass notifications regarding the e-newsletters that we share as a district. In addition, each school may use something completely different to share information with their school community. So we really wanted to condense some of those platforms into one and provide some more continuity across the district. having to access 3 different providers for communications also causes some confusion, and it limits our response time in terms of a crisis. If I have to go to one location for one way of communicating with you and another to do something different, it slows the response time for us if we need to communicate with parents in a very prompt manner. In addition, our emergency notification provider school messenger only allows us to provide voice messages if school is canceled or something like that. We know that parents aren't always able to answer the phone, and it's not always the most effective way to reach them. So with our new expansive mass notifications feature, we will finally introduce text messaging and basic email messaging. So we have a variety of ways to communicate with our community through this platform. Teacher communication is another feature that we'd like to add to our communications tools. So I've had conversations with every building principal as well as parents and teachers in the district, and overwhelmingly I've been told that text messaging is one of the best ways to reach our community. There are tools in place that many teachers are already using, such as Remind, if many of you are familiar with that, is a text messaging tool for teachers to use. We have 200 teachers using this tool and almost 3,000 parents signed up to use it. It's a great tool, but the problem is parents need to opt in to be part of it, which we know we definitely miss people that way. If you see that 200 teachers are using it and only 3,000 parents are seeing it, there's a lot more there. So another bonus with the Blackboard contract is we will have a Remind-like feature where every teacher will have access to it. It will automatically populate that teacher's classroom list with parent contact information, and they will be able to share text messages with their parents in a private way that will relay some messages that maybe you won't see through email as quickly or through social media as quickly or any of those other avenues. So we're excited about that. And of course, like I mentioned, the training and support is very important, but it doesn't come for free, which is why it's priced down in the contract, and it's critical to launch a new website. I have done this once before, and I'll tell you the most difficult part of the process was not the design, it was not selection of features, it was informing people of how it works and what benefit it has to them. So with this contract, Blackboard will be able to come out to us for a one-day training with our staff, and there will also be several online training components for parents and community members, students, teachers to utilize if they don't know how to use something. And Sandy Kramer, who works with me, she's here tonight, and myself will be doing a lot of training in person with our team to make sure everyone's on the same page with all of the applications that I've introduced today. So if approved by the board tonight, we will be working with Blackboard to create a custom design and deploy the features that I've gone over. I will work with my team to engage the community regarding the design and involve them in the process as well to make sure that it is what is expected of this community. I don't want to design something just based on my own intuition. I want to make sure that it meets the needs of all of us. So we'll be engaging a team to look over the different renditions of the design to make sure that things are where they need to be and that it looks the way that our community expects it to look before we finalize anything. We are optimistic that if approved tonight, our mass notifications and teacher communications tools will be available this winter. As we know, the winter weather is when we will probably need some of those tools most. So we will have those up and running hopefully by December so that in case of a snow day, we will be able to text message our families instead of relying on the features that we have in place today. And the website and mobile application we hope to have in place by late winter or early spring. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have regarding the contract.
I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned the constant contact use by schools will be eliminated. So I'm aware that schools use constant contact, but also PTAs and some of the other local organizations that belong to those schools. Will they be able to utilize Blackboard tools also?
Yes. So one of
their costs.
One of the features of this is unlimited e-newsletter designs that we can share. I really wanted to put control back in the hands of the schools to send their messages and not have them rely on their own school budgets to do so. So we will be able to make as many e-newsletters as we want, and the benefit too is that they'll have a look and feel that is similar across the board. So if you see a newsletter, it may say a different PTA or school name on it, but you'll know it came from our district because it will have that same look and feel.
Morgan, you can talk briefly about the cost structure of it. I know that there's going to be an initial startup cost to it, and then moving forward, how it's going to, will it create a cost savings? Will it be an additional cost with consolidation of all the different platforms that we have?
So presently, our Edline cost is just for a website platform. It doesn't include any of the extra communication features that I mentioned, and we pay roughly $27,000 a year for that platform. For Constant Contact, which is our e-newsletter platform that I mentioned, we pay about $2,000 a year for that. And School Messenger, which is our robocall feature or our emergency notification feature, we pay about $13,000 a year for that. So in total, that's about $42,000 that we pay presently for communications tools. Now, I don't have the figures for each building, if they pay a line item for Constant Contact as a principal or a PTA. I'm not sure how that looks. I imagine it's several $1,000s in addition to that. So the total Blackboard costs after the initial launches underway is $64,000 a year. Now, that sounds like quite a big jump, but keep in mind it includes a mobile app and the teacher communication tool, and in addition, it's a more robust platform. We have a lot more features to work with. We have a lot more design tools at our fingertips than we do with Edline currently. So that extra $22,000 can be absorbed in the communications budget through the elimination of some of our paper products. We currently print and mail quite a bit of paper to our families, and with the introduction of a new digital presence, we'll have the ability to put a lot of that online now, and we won't have to mail that home all the time. So while it is more expensive, it can be absorbed in the current communications budget without an additional allocation of funds.
So 2 questions. One, so School Messenger I know we use now. Does that mean we can eliminate School Messenger and the fees that go with it, which is great? I use it. It's not great.
Yeah.
And then my second question, so I know from having 2 kids in the district, like in one of their classes, we use 2 different applications. One allows for like student-parent sharing of like slides and things that they create, which is really cool, called Seesaw. And then there's another one called Blooms that's used for newsletters. And then that same teacher also does a lot of email communications too, all of which I appreciate. I'd rather find things out in like 3 ways than not at all. But will Blackboard allow us to consolidate some of the resources that our teachers are using so they won't have to use so many applications? And I know they find in the classroom that the more applications you introduce or ask parents to get onto, the less likely you're going to get participation in them. So,
Well, like I mentioned, I think that was part of the reason we went with Blackboard is the consolidation of resources so parents know where to go. I don't think that there is a feature with Blackboard that would replace something like a Seesaw or a Blooms. However, the Remind tool will no longer be needed if a teacher wanted to use that through Blackboard. So we'll be working with the teachers to determine their needs too, moving along and seeing if we can introduce maybe a district-wide initiative where if you have students in multiple classrooms, you don't have to guess what teacher's using what, but that'll come later. I think Blackboard has more features that we could add in the future if we felt that was needed, but at this point in time, we're not introducing something to replace a Seesaw, for example.
Okay.
So I was wondering about the costs. Do the costs include like updates to the site periodically through the year, and like how many, are they limiting it in any way, or?
No, so we have I've worked with Blackboard in my former district, so I'm familiar with how they operate, and they do automatic updates frequently. We also have the top level of support, so if the system were to go down and we needed some assistance, we'd be the first on the list to get that back up and running. We have a lot more support, I think, with this contract than we do with Edline presently, and a lot of that is done manually in-house, which will no longer be needed.
Okay, so there's some resources that we currently are utilizing in-house for our current website that potentially would not be needed anymore.
Correct. So for one example would be when we update staff lists presently on Edline, that has to be done manually by Sandy. And it takes, if you can imagine the turnover every year and all those things, it takes a long time. So with this new feature, that'll be an automatic update. I'm not sure if it's every night, but it's very frequent, maybe multiple times a week, that we won't have to do ourselves anymore. So that's a nice bonus.
And then with regards to the being able to hook parents up with text messages, I would assume we probably would have to set up some sort of policies around that so that parents don't start getting bombarded with text messages all the time. So is there some sort of guidelines that you have in mind for, distributing it to the staff, to the teachers, saying, hey,
absolutely,
make sure you don't, this is the threshold you need to meet before you start sending out text messages to the parents so they don't start getting annoyed with them,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of the launch and part of the introduction of the services and the supports to the teachers is some level of guidelines about not only texting, but how frequently should you be sending a newsletter. And that comes with some research that I've been looking into with parents and asking that question is how frequently do you want to be communicated with. But for sure there will be some guidelines in place about not abusing the features, but utilizing them as appropriate.
Okay, and then you're talking about getting feedback from the community before you implement stuff. So you're saying that the implementation would probably be, you said, in late winter, early spring?
Correct.
So I guess what's your plan on how to gather this information from the community? What kind of process are you going to go through there?
So once the board signs the contract, we'll be paired with a designer, and the designer will work with us on whatever template we come up with. The template is just it's not out-of-the-box template, it's just our custom template. So what I'll do is I'll gather a group of community members, staff members, teachers, a lot of different perspectives on how they use the website to run these different templates by them and see what they think. And then I'll present whatever changes we would desire back to the person working on our website. They'll present us with version 2. I'll bring that back to the committee and ask them what their thoughts are. So there will be some back and forth before we sign off on any one design to make sure that the layout is correct. People are looking for things, they know where to find them, and the organization of some of the content is what people expect it to be. So I know people use it differently, so I just don't want to miss it.
So you're talking about 2 or 3 iterations before the launch?
It depends. When I did this previously, we had 4.
Okay.
And it took a long time because we went back and forth quite a bit. So my hope is to gather some input right away from people about what their expectations are so that we can present the most detailed version of what we expect to the designer up front. So we don't have as many changes, but they're willing to do unlimited changes for us, which is why we need to be flexible on the date of launch. I don't want to promise something if it gets extended because we want some changes. I think that's totally appropriate if that's the case, but that's why I said late winter, early spring, you just never know. So.
And the changes are all included in the scope of the contract with Blackboard, so it's not like, well, you had 2 changes, but you guys went to 4, so now there's charges or anything
There's
like
no
that.
charge for changes. They do limit you in terms of JavaScript apps and things like that that would be included in the design, but we know that up front, and they'll tell us if we're exceeding that, and we won't exceed it. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Good, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for all your hard work, and excited to see a new updated website in the near future. It's long overdue. Thank you. And thanks to Sandy for coming tonight and for your work with Morgan. Is June on that team as well? Who's on that team?
June is, yes.
So June, thank you too, June. Don't want to leave anybody out. The last item in my section is really to talk about our upcoming community forum scheduled for October 2nd at Carl Sandburg Junior High School. We're excited to partner with our Community Engagement Planning Committee, and they selected possible dates, and they chose the topic of the North Schaumburg TIF as the major topic to be discussed at the community forum. And at first I said, wow, the TIF really isn't on the top of my list of concerns for the district, but the more I delved into it, the more I talked with Lisa, we agreed that this is an item that gets us to something that is very important to the district. We had some parents from TJ here tonight commenting, and we've heard from them before. But the bigger issues are we planning for the future? What about our boundaries? Are we forward-thinking? Do we have space for kids? Are we going to be making the appropriate changes to meet the demands of our community going forward? And we know we've got some overcrowded schools. We've got some configurations of schools that we proposed to change, but the community said no. So this is the first chance for us to talk about this bigger issue by starting out with the Schaumburg TIF. And so we're going to talk about the Schaumburg TIF, what we know about that at this point, give some history about that, talk about TIFs in general. Micah Damchek and I will be doing this. What are TIFs? How do they work? Talk about some of the other TIFs that are currently in operation in the district. We have, I think, at least 6 TIFs within the school district that are currently functioning. Then we'll talk about revenue streams. How do we get money from the community, primarily real estate taxes, and how does that work? And then we'll talk, I think, a little bit about our demographics, our schools, and the capacity of schools. And we'll be sharing some information, I think, that will be laying the groundwork then for some really good work on attacking the goal that the board set to look at these things during the upcoming school year so we can make some recommendations about how we want to move forward. So I know that many of you, or all of you, are planning to come to that. We're excited that you'll be there. And Mike and Jordan and I are going to get together, and we're going to really start hitting that presentation hard in the next few weeks. But we're excited about the community forum and glad for the committee that's got that going.
If there's anybody from the committee in the audience, I see some of you. If you're on RD15 voice, can you step up, please? Stand up. Thank you.
Okay, that's all for my section.
That's it, huh? May I have a motion for the reading and acceptance of minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings of the Board of Education: the August 9th, 2017 regular Board of Education meeting and the August 31st, 2017 Board of Education special meeting for the Finance Committee.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Iannarino.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, board discussion and reports. The Ed-Red Council legislation, Mr. Iannarino?
So for Ed-Red, we actually had some monumental agreement to get the school funding formula changed. It was a Senate Bill 1947. It had a lot of stuff in there that I think was a big compromise between the factions that were feuding for so long. The highlights of it, what it does is it creates a evidence-based model for funding. And what they look at is they look at all the different districts and they have this thing called the adequacy target for each school district, and that's based off of lots of different factors that go into it. The other thing they've come up with is that when they do the funding, they have a hold harmless aspect to it, which means no district is going to get their funding cut from what it was before. So that was an important thing. They also put in there some mechanisms for property tax relief. And then they also put some stuff in there for mandate relief and for expanding school choice, which they allow for about $75 million to be contributed to scholarships for non-public schools. And then the last thing, which is kind of interesting, is the TIF task force, which they're putting in place, a committee that's going to study the TIFs and kind of figure out, how they affect school district funding and how they could be addressed in the future. So, because currently the TIFs kind of are a bit harmful to school districts because it takes away potential revenue for the school districts. So there's lots of stuff, lots of information on the details of it and the formulas. I don't know if I really want to go into all the nitty gritty, but the one thing that is kind of, like I said, one of the sticking points had to do with the Chicago public school system and how much, the fact that the Chicago public school system gets like a $200 million block grant generally every year. But this is something that's separate and was not going to be considered into the formula. That's what most people wanted, to keep it separate, so if possible, they could make it go away. But there's lots of advocates, of course, from the Chicago public school system that wanted to keep that in there, wanted it to be locked in to the evidence-based model. So they did get what they wanted. They got that locked in. So that's not going away. And I think in exchange they got the other concessions, which were the relief from mandates and this mechanism for taxpayer relief, where if a district is bringing in, I think it's over 110% of the, however the formula works, the taxpayers can actually put a referendum on the ballot at the consolidated elections and actually force the district to reduce their tax rate. So that's pretty radical, I think, from anything that's existed before. District 15 is not in that kind of position, but actually District 211 is. So they could be in for something interesting with regards to their taxes. What was the other one thing I wanted to point out? Let's see. Talked about the mandate relief. Well, I think that was most of the stuff. There's a lot of information that you could probably dig up online. I also got a pretty nice summary here from the EdRed guys, which, I don't know, maybe somehow we can make available to everybody so that people want to peruse it, they can do so. Well, the one last thing was about the funding. They are going to break the districts down into 4 tiers. And the 4 tiers are going to be set up as to how they're able to actually raise funds, like what's their ability to raise funds in their district. And District 15 is going to be a Tier 2 school. Tier 1 schools are the ones that get the funding first. So, like I said, everybody gets the same amount of money they used to get, and then any additional money will be distributed to the school districts based upon their tier ranking. So, any extra money that the state has available for distribution to the districts will first go to the Tier 1 schools, and then the Tier 2, and then the Tier 3, and then the Tier 4. So that's the other interesting thing. That's about it.
Any questions? The 1-5 Foundation, Mrs. Haynes?
I have no update this month.
All right. Finance Committee, Mr. Border.
We met on August 31st, and we were just going to tag team this between Anthony and myself. And Mike and team are going to have a little bit of information to present. The 2 main topics we discussed are the summer 2018 capital projects, so building on the presentation that was given on the 16 and 17 work, and the benefit of starting those early in the bidding process. We're discussing the priority of which projects should be itemized within that and targeted. The 5-year forecast assumes $1.5 million spent annually. What came to us as sort of pressing needs total somewhere between 10 and 11 million in terms of potential projects. So clearly a need to prioritize, but also a need to review sort of the expenditure at $1.5 million. The projects before us would take upwards of 7 or 8 years to complete, with no new projects coming into view. So the materials provided, and Mike can go into more detail on the specifics of each of them, provide 2 different proposals. One, a list of projects if we stay at or around the 1.5 million spend, and another that would be our recommendation to have a $5 million spend. One of the large projects is a curtain wall replacement at Plum Grove, similar to what's being done at Whiteley and some of the work at Hunting Ridge this past year. That by itself is over $4 million, so clearly never would fit into the $1.5 million annual spend. But we can go through those in greater detail. The other topic that we discussed is the bonding capability around the Whiteley project specifically. So the prior board in some of their work had established a criteria by which we can issue bonds to recoup some of that funding and essentially issue $5 million of bonds to cover some of those costs. So as you review the 2 proposals in terms of the $1.5 million and the $5 million, part of it is if we go to the $5 million, we'll be in a deficit position from a balanced budget. We have the bonding capability from the Whiteley project that would present $5 million in bonds that could essentially offset a large portion of that for consideration. So I don't know if we want to do Mike's part now in terms of going through the specific projects.
Well, I don't know, were you going to do anything else about the projects?
No, in your board packet, there are some, we listed out 2 options to spend 1.5 million or 3 million. I guess I should come back to the microphone. Excuse me. There is in your board packet, excuse me, good evening. 2 options to spend 1.5 million or 3 million.
5 million.
Or 5 million, I'm sorry. And when we looked at the $1.5 million list, we listed out carpeting at 3 of our buildings, Pleasant Hill, Lake Louise, and Virginia Lake. It's carpeting that's probably, how old is Pleasant Hill, Craig? 30 years old, carpeting?
Pleasant Hill was done in 1995.
So that's 22 years old, but if you walk through Pleasant Hill, you look at that carpeting, it's threadbare, it's wearing out, there's buckles in it because the mastic is broken apart. So that's really bad. Conyers parking lot was $500,000 and a partial roof replacement at Plum Grove. So that goes to about 1.6, a little bit over the 1.5. If the board so desires and directs us to spend $5 million, we'd still leave the Conyers Learning Academy parking lot and the Pleasant Hill carpeting, but then we'd expedite the curtain wall replacement at Plum Grove for about 4.2, which also has mechanical systems in it as well, I believe. Yeah, we do that? Yeah, some maintenance on it too. So we have two lists with about 1.5 of the $5 million.
So when we talked about the entire list, we prioritized which items we felt the most important to get to as quickly as possible, regardless of cost. And we did list the Plum Grove curtain wall as the top issue for us to be addressing if possible. So that's why we come to you with a recommendation of $5 million. And certainly the parking lot at Conyers is very important. We got lots of children that go through there. We park our buses on there, and we certainly don't want anyone injured. It's got to be done. It's really in very deteriorating state. So from the list, the bottom three items were really close to the top. The Plum Grove curtain wall was the top item. But we knew that we didn't have that in our budget, so we bring to you tonight two recommendations. And Anthony, am I accurately portraying that?
Yeah, and there's not a lot more that I can add. The one thing I would say is that we did discuss, I believe, with the curtain wall, of a piecemeal approach versus completing the entire project in one. And again, going through the analysis of both options and some previous examples, it would make sense to approach it as a singular project.
Yeah, thank you for reminding us.
Yeah.
So we said, can we cut this back and do half one year and half another and not have such a big expense? But Craig pointed out that would really not be the best way to handle it. Prices would go up next year, we wouldn't get as good of bids, and you wouldn't be guaranteed of the same materials the second year as you would the first year. So it just made sense to us that we just proposed the whole thing 1 year.
So can I ask, in the subsequent years after, we're talking, 18, 19, right? So following 18, 19, do we think for the next several years we have any big ticket items like this, or do we think we would keep to more of a $1.5 million budget
So in the
years that follow?
In the second page of this, and you can speak to more of them, but they're the itemized of each of the ones that are out there. So there are a couple right around $2 million items that we're seeing as important and to keep on the list for the future, but not critical in terms of the timing. So the roof replacement at Sunling, roof replacement at Central Road, and the mechanical univent removal and replacement at Lincoln School are all $2 million or so items that were on there, carried really from the life safety review and keeping the buildings up to date, but not as urgent as some of the other ones that were selected.
In the past, I think 2 boards previous to you, we did an analysis. We thought the minimum that we could spend every year is $3 million. So we would have $3 million each year in capital projects as a kind of a minimum. This year we had $1.5 million because we knew that we wanted to keep a balanced budget, and that was the only way to keep a balanced budget was put $1.5 million in there. But we think that
And this is the first year that budget's been this low in quite a while, right? I mean, it usually has been at least between 3 and 5 million.
the budgeted amount for capital projects has been at least $3 million in the past, hasn't it, Mike?
Well, it has been 3, and sometimes as high as 6 at different times within the last 3 or 4 years, correct?
So we've had a lot of deferred maintenance that's catching up with us, and so we think that at least $3 million each year is going to need to be dedicated to keeping up our 20 buildings.
Yeah.
So, we're hoping that going forward, $3 million will do it, but we'll keep you informed of that, and certain things do pop up along the way that we're unaware of. So, like Whiteley, that's a $5 million project that we didn't anticipate.
Scott, how does this relate to the life safety funds that that we have for the last few years that we've spent? These are things that obviously are coming out of the annual budget. It's not from the additional funds. So all of those funds have already been capped out and accounted for. And sense, on different projects.
So we issued $27 million in
Yes.
bonds, and we expended most of that in life safety projects over the last 2 summers. Mike, how much is left over that we've saved?
Honestly, when we get done spending or paying off all our bills, we will have spent all of that and then some. So we've actually gone a little bit over that on some of our bid awards. So we will end up spending, part of that a little bit is the Frank C. Whiteley project too that's included in it, but all intents and purposes, all of that money is spent between December 16 and December 17.
I think the concept, though, as prior to sitting in this seat as a stakeholder and citizen of the community, the whole wait, let's just spend a bunch of money on life safety is a little offensive. So conceptually, deferred maintenance to me is not a good idea, that we need to make and take care of things as they come up, as opposed to waiting and then having this big lump sum that's a little harder to swallow. It's my own budgetary perspective.
And you see, a job like the curtain walls and the entire outside of Frank C. White, of Plum Grove, is a very large project. And in order to get the bid documents ready, they need to start working on them right away. And so I was hoping, I think we're hoping, the committee's hoping that the board would see the benefit of some maintenance, taking care of some things now, issuing that $5 million and giving us the go-ahead to start getting the architects ready so that we can hit the road with our bids in November and get the best bidding prices and get good contractors and take care of this thing before it gets to a place where we're really in trouble.
So to get maybe a better understanding of the importance of the curtain wall at Plum Grove, could you maybe let us know what kind of problems are we seeing because of the condition of the curtain wall, and what, if it's not addressed, what could we see further down the road from there?
Let me try, Craig, and you can jump in and correct me if I don't have it correct. But so I think perhaps I've given you a little information before on curtain walls. I can't remember if it was the previous board or you, but the buildings, when you have curtain walls, they've got steel beams that go up, and Jan's here as well, he can help us, but they've got steel beams that really support the building, and the walls themselves do not support the building.
Right.
And what you do is you hang the outside structure on these metal beams and columns. And so what's happened at Plum Grove is over the years, those outside panels have shifted, and they are no longer preventing wind and water and things from getting into the walls, which is extremely problematic. So the shifting over the years with the windows and the panels, is creating a situation where they're not very good for keeping the heating and cooling costs down, but they're also potentially allowing wind and water to come in, and eventually they could fail.
That's correct. Yeah, in the reference of what's going on at Plum Grove, there's been, the year that it was built, and 2 additions that were put onto the building. And the original structure is steel frame with the exposed columns, sort of what they call a mesium design, where the panels fit between columns. So you end up with thermal differential movement. In other words, the columns take on 0-degree air temperature, 72-degree on the inside. The panel on the wall is moving different than the column is moving. So you constantly get the air seepage for a 2.5-story section. And we constantly go in and rake those out every 3 to 4 years and recaulk. But at the same time, the glass gasketing as well as the panels under the windows have cracked and failed because of that long-term shift in movement and deformation that's taken place. So we're constantly getting moisture and water inundation, ceiling tiles that get water stains on it. Next thing you know, people start saying mold and other problems. In Plum Grove years ago, I had a situation that excessive money was spent to show that there was not a problem as far as a medical or cancer, and yet on the same token, it's very difficult to tell a staff member or a parent, oh, there's no problem with the building, and they look up and see wet ceiling tiles and say, well, isn't that mold or mold behind it? And we've done numerous testing in-house and with external services to show that it isn't, but at some point, it becomes a situation that I can have windows falling out if we have 80-mile-an-hour winds because the gaskets have gotten to the point that they no longer seal the way they were designed to do, where you can get the vacuum suction or it coming in instead of going out, that says it's prudent for us at this time to make the recommendation for safety to replace it, as well as energy cost reduction on an operating expense standpoint. So that's the reason why we put it at...
So the walls are failing, but they are not at a point where it's critical at this point. We don't want them to get to a critical point, and that's why we listed this as a top item to be addressed that we need to take care of as soon as possible.
So let me ask a quick question, and you'll probably tell me like, oh, this is not a $5 million question, it becomes a $25 million question, but why would we replace something that continues to shift and causes us to recaulk and have window sealing issues instead of reconfiguring something that works more efficiently?
Could you repeat the question?
No, I think we've got it. So Jan might be able to address this, but the cost of putting up a solid wall is maybe, I think, what you're suggesting
Yes,
versus...
so are we talking like this is not a $5 million
that is a very expensive adventure. But I would say, Jan, wouldn't you agree that technology has advanced now so that curtain walls are much more efficient than they were when this building was built?
Right, well, this building, I don't know if you've bought windows to your house and talked about thermally broken windows. Well, this building, Plum Grove, is not thermally broken. The column is exposed to elements of the outside. It's cold in wintertime. You put your hand on the column, the inside, it's almost the same temperature as outside. So what we're looking at, it's interrupted. The curtain wall is interrupted by the columns. We're looking at a scenario where we can cover that and make the building thermally broken. So the cold stays outside, the column stays warm, and so that we won't get differential movement.
That's what I was just going to ask, if you guys were going to push the curtain wall out just a little bit so the columns are on the inside?
Some looking into it, yeah, and it's possible to do that.
Okay, so it's a new design where you're going to redesign the curtain wall, so it's actually a more robust design than what it was originally?
Well, absolutely, because it won't meet the energy code if you just replace what's there, the way it is now.
Yeah, so they'll go outside the steel columns, and then that'll fix the problem they currently have.
Basically encapsulating the structural
columns.
frame.
Yeah.
So that it's energy efficient in that. And then as it relates to the question, if you had, let's say, untold revenue, one might say it'd be wonderful to have all brick and block or stone, but in this particular case, there's many areas that are masonry construction existing on the building that's going to remain. We're dealing with really the glass fenestration and the exposed column areas to correct the situation there. If you were to go in and do brick and block, you're going to spend a lot more money, and then you have a time element, because once you tear the walls off, I only have a few weeks to throw it back together, to have it ready for school, and if I said tear all the walls off and do brick and block, that's months and months worth of work just to do the exterior masonry wall construction.
Well, and added, it also includes unit replacements as well on those walls.
Right.
Which is a big portion of the cost, too.
Right.
Yeah, and at this point, viable building envelope with new technology is partly about heat and cold transfer, but a huge part of it is moisture egress. So, and when you start getting moisture egress because you don't have a sound viable building envelope, you're going to have damage inside the school. So that just elevates it to a whole nother level.
And the other side that parallels this, as you see the notation on Lincoln School, for example, and/or Plum Grove School, the replacement of univents. The age of these products have gotten to the point that we're no longer able to support them with replacement parts. And we've, in my own staff here, where we replace compressors and motors and condensers and that, the indication by the manufacturers and the suppliers has now said you can no longer get the condensers. So it doesn't matter that I can get a compressor or a motor, I can't get the condenser. And the R22 is no longer going to be available. You got to go to the new R173 or other product, which is a higher pressure system. That means that the units that are there aren't going to get replaced with the light unit. It has to be the new unit, which are bigger, takes more airflow in and out, and get a better energy efficiency also out of new units compared to the age units that are from 1960-something and 70-something.
I was going to say, when were the original curtain wall and the univent systems from? Is it from when it was originally built, or is it?
The curtain wall, yeah, the curtain wall and the brick on the north end of it was the original phase of the building. And then in around the 70s, they put the second phase on the south end, making the two front wings. And then the last one was the major gym and the offices, and LRC was the last addition, which was in 96, which is why you see it mostly in brick as opposed to any curtain wall, because that was from the original phase of construction. The univents themselves were updated back in 1996 at that time. So you have 1996, and here we are today.
What's the life expectancy, Jan, of a univent?
20 years.
Yeah, so we've hit it.
So it's come to that point, yeah. All right, end of life.
So, does the board have any other questions about the projects and the two lists?
So is the new design finalized?
No.
No, okay.
Well,
So
we're-
you're still working on
We're
it?
asking tonight for your approval so that we can start working on the designs, because we want to invest any money in the design until you said, yeah, go ahead. So
Okay.
the architects will be spending some time and extending us a bill to develop this new plan.
Yeah, I was just seeing if you guys had concept generation already done, but I guess not.
We have the relative thought of what we're going to be doing in terms of encapsulation and how we deal with the issue, but we haven't finalized anything as far as design or details to present and say, here's what it's going to look like. That we need board approval to say, proceed with our professional group to put all that information together, which is in preparation of the contract construction drawings.
Okay.
So one more. The difference between the $1.5 million budget, or 1.6, and the $5 million, I see it's not just the addition of the curtain wall, but it's the removal of about $275,000 worth of carpet work in a couple of the buildings. Would those projects be prioritized for the next summer?
Yes.
Yes, when we had the discussion, it was really, when we asked the group, they said basically the number one issue that sort of needs replacement, I think, was the Pleasant Hill carpeting. The Conyers parking lot was close behind, and the Plum Grove, because of the issues that are sort of imminent, as well as the magnitude of the spend, were the ones that came to bear. So those were really the three priorities. It's less of those drop off as opposed to when you pull out the Plum Grove, there was another $750 or so to spend, and the Plum Grove partial roof replacement was put in place as well. So the carpetings and that were sort of added back in if we decided that now wasn't the proper time to do the curtain wall.
So Barb, I anticipate next year that we'll regenerate a list and prioritize again and see what we can do for whatever's in the budget.
So the presumption would be that if we did the project list 2, the roof replacement at Plum Grove and those two carpetings would be towards the top of the list, along with some of the remaining ones that were deprioritized this year.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Anything else from the committee report? Can we get a sense from the board whether they'd like us to proceed with the recommended $5 million or to stick with the budget of $1.5 million?
Start at
Well, I would think due to the importance of the curtain wall, creating all kinds of other problems downstream, I think that's probably a reasonable thing, because it seems to me like you might be spending a lot more money downstream if you let this go to a point where other systems start getting damaged.
You're continuing to defer, and construction costs go up and everything else. I would be in support of project list 2, based on the presentations we've heard.
I would also support.
I guess my one question briefly, I know that Dave, you had touched on it really quickly, is the option to run a deficit or to issue bonds, I guess is the question. Do we have the ability to not issue the bonds, or is it kind of the consensus that this will require the issuance of bonds?
They're really two separate issues. The amounts are such that they can then overlap. So you can do this and have the excess funds eat into the surplus. The bonding comes in as if you didn't want to run it at a deficit level and into the surplus, we have the capability to issue bonds for the Whiteley curtain wall work. So that would be equivalent to $5 million, which would more than offset the deficit created here. But while they're overlapping and they work nicely together, they're separate issues. So you can do it and just have it eat in a surplus.
And either way, we're deficit because our budget says we have 1.5 and we're saying we'll spend 5. So it's 3.5 million of deficit funded in one of two ways. Is that?
It's either funded through surplus or you could issue the bonds and.
Yeah. That increases our revenue and then so it becomes a balanced budget.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So the question before us right now is, do we believe that, I guess, item 1 or item 2 is the correct way to go right now? Okay.
Yeah, the question right now is, do you want to spend the $5 million and then you have the budget issue to deal with around what you want to do with that?
Mike, can we ask a question in terms of if we were to take the 3.5 out of the reserve fund? What typically is the time frame on replenishing an amount of money at that level? I know it's asking a big guess, but.
I'm not sure I understand the question. So how long would it take under normal operations?
What she's asking is how many years of revenue over expenditures would it take for us to regain that the $3.5 million that we used?
Well, I can't give you a good answer on that, and part of my presentation on the budget, and we'll discuss a little bit more. So under the new evidence-based model that Mr. Henry was talking about, our state revenue's gone from about $800,000 or $900,000 a year. So we've known, so that's actually, District 15 has fared very well from that because our revenues have gone up. Our CPPRT, which is our commercial personal property replacement taxes, have gone down by $500,000 next year, because the state's taken $300 million out of that fund as opposed to $100 million as they had before. That was in the Daily Herald today. Overall, our revenues are going up more than we thought they would have gone in June. So I would say, I would venture like 1 or 2 years before it would probably take 1 or 2 years to replace that money that would come out of fund reserves.
Great. Thank you.
So I think I've heard 3 people that are in favor of the $5 million.
I'd say I'm in favor of the $5 million. My only question would be, and this is for you guys who did the work, you said you think this curtain wall is roughly third priority. Is it really like third priority? Would we ever consider doing the curtain wall and pushing back the other couple projects slated on this year to spend less than the $5 million? Push off the carpet at Plum Grove and what was the other one?
Pleasant Hill Carpeting.
Conyers.
Pleasant Hill
Conyers
Carpeting, I'm sorry, and the Conyers parking lot.
Yeah, those two, I mean, it was the sort of administration's recommendation around the Pleasant Hill Carpeting being a very high priority. It's the original from the building. The Conyers was really viewed as a safety issue, given the fact that, and part of it is that the parking lot was made to be a normal parking lot. We've parked buses there for a number of years. The wear and tear is such that it's in a state of disarray that needs repair. So the feeling was that it was more imminent to do those in the near term, as opposed, at this point, we're really talking about waiting. If you say no to those at this point, you're waiting 20 months before you start them, because we're planning out, you're talking about 2019 summer at that point in time, and given where we're at and the state that they're in now, that felt like a long time to push them off.
With regards to the parking lot, your point about the fact that we've been parking buses on them, which if it's on asphalt, that's not a good thing. When we redo this, are we going to do something with the area where the buses are being parked? Are they going to put concrete there, or are they doing anything to mitigate damage of the new parking lot?
I think it's a misnomer. The buses aren't really that heavy.
Okay.
It's just regular wear. And all of our buses are parked on asphalt elsewhere. We just don't have one big enough space for all of our buses. And it actually works out okay to have 3 locations for our buses. We've got some here, we've got some at Marion Jordan, and we've got some at CLA. It's just that they add to the wear and tear. They're not that heavy. It's not like parking dump trucks or something on them.
Yeah, I've seen the way asphalt can just literally mush underneath the weight of
It's amazing how
trucks and stuff.
buses are. They're not really that heavy.
Well, that's good.
And it's the buses, but it's also the volume of staff that goes in and out of that facility. It's a heightened use for what it was originally intended for.
And I would say that the Pleasant Hill carpeting is a safety issue because it does have a number of tears and we don't want kids tripping. And the other thing is it took a beating this summer with the construction that took place. You saw some of the photos of the construction and it's just impossible not to keep some of that construction debris out of the carpet, and it looks bad and I really don't think it's safe. So I think it's
The carpeting's been there for how many years?
22.
Carpeting's been there since 1993.
Oh, more than 22.
It's retro now.
It's going to come back in style. Wait, just leave that. Also, if you've got mastic release, it's a trip hazard. So
Yeah.
So here's the other part of the process is we're asking for the go-ahead primarily for the curtain wall replacement at Plum Grove because that takes a lot of lead time. The carpet, we're going to come back to you with a bid and ask you to approve the bid. If that time you say, you know what, I've changed my mind, I don't want to do that, you deny the bid and we don't have to spend the money on the carpet. That doesn't take a lot of planning. It just decide, Craig, the interior designer, will choose what color and then he'll come back and ask you to expend this money after we put it on its bid. The parking lot probably a little bit more because we've got to go out to bid and get things for that. But they're still going to come back to you and ask you to approve these bids. And so at that time, if the board changed its mind, it could do that. But right now, we really need approval to get the curtain wall going so that the architects can get things set up for a good schedule for the school year.
Yeah, I think based on what was presented, I would give the go-ahead on the $5 million. The one question I do have that I guess kind of keeps spinning in my mind is why would we go 1 year with Plum Grove and did 2 years with Whiteley? Just curious as to what the difference is, why it was done over 2 years at Whiteley and why we're pushing for the one at Plum Grove. I think the 1 year makes sense. I'm just curious as to why.
The system that we use down at Whiteley is what we call a air barrier system with a bag drainage on it. So that it's a completely different technology that was applied at Whiteley than what we're doing over here at Plum Grove.
Okay.
And so the methodology was such that the year that we were doing it, there weren't enough contractors with this specific panel installation available to do it. So then we split it up into two sections.
Okay.
Good question. Okay, so I sense we have the go-ahead, and you'll change, if you want to change your mind on the carpet or the parking lot, you'll let us know later. Thank you very much for that. And committee members, nice report. The final thing that we did talk about was the bonds, and I think we can address that later. If the board, as a group, would like to get more information on what it would mean, what a schedule, how we would go about issuing those $5 million, the information I gave you was a little inaccurate. There's some recalculations, and actually a house that would sell for $250,000, the increase for that $5 million would be $10 annually. So, but we can have Elizabeth Hennessy come and give you a full-fledged presentation at a later date if the board so chooses to consider issuing those bonds. We also should find out, Mike, if there's an end date for the availability for the board to recoup those funds and issue those bonds.
Okay. Next, the Equity Committee, Mr. Khan.
Yes, so since the last board meeting, I was able to have a meeting with Tom Edgar, and what he's going to provide to us, Mike and I, is just a number of they have now with the MAP scoring and with the, because we remember, just to, I guess, take a step back, we're trying to understand the achievement gap and try to understand, whether it exists and how it exists, and we've done a lot of data collection, especially since the park exam has been instituted, and so there's a lot of cool things that Tom has showed me, and he's going to put together scores and divided up per schools and with demographics kind of overlaid over that. So I think those reports will be very important because we're going to take those reports compared to what we're hearing in our meetings with the various principals over at all the schools and what we're seeing, and so we kind of have the data and some of the first-hand accounts together, and in our efforts to continue to get data. Another good point that we've learned is that, in the initial, this data, including to the level of the scoring and the demographics, have been used by the Department of Instruction when they're discussing with principals about what the goals are for the school that year, what are some of the challenges that the data shows. So some of this information is I'm very happy to report that at least that the data is being used in a very practical way in terms of having it part of principals' kind of directions of what needs to be done at each school and which particular issues. As we've seen from talking to principals, every school is different. So the fact that data is used is a good thing, and I think it's sometime in around the winter time that each school will be kind of putting together, or each principal will be putting together a report of what they plan to do with what strategies they look to do in terms of instruction to deal with their particular issues in that thing. So I think when those come out, that'll be yet another form of data that the Equity Committee can use together. Hopefully, ultimately, the way I thought about it when I was talking to Tom was just that we take all this data, and then we're having these community forums as well that we just talked about, and then we can hear a lot more from the public, and hopefully from all of that information we can put our heads together and think of some good recommendations in terms of how a way to describe the achievement gap if it's there, and then how to improve on it.
Great. Any questions? All right. Board policy, the first reading. Any comments or discussion with regard to the policies published in the packet? We'll revisit it again next month, and we've got the month to talk about it if anybody wants to converse. And Superintendent's Communication Committee?
Yeah, we met on the 29th of August, and Mike was there, Zubair was there. We had a teacher, Jen Bulow, from this building there, Matt Barbini and I, and Morgan were there. And Morgan shared her initial thoughts regarding the recent communication efforts, and I've already praised those. And hopefully you've seen quite an improvement from the efforts that she's already instituted. So we were happy about that. She let us know about an improved format for newsletters, professional developments for administrators to increase their efforts using social media and other avenues to communicate. She's used videos that she's created to connect with parents and community, and she's really made certainly some good avenue connections with media and local media outlets. She also shared with us her communications plan, and that included one main component, which was the revision of the web page. But there's some other things that she included in that, and I think the committee thought that the plan was comprehensive and was going to be a good plan. And one of the parts that she talked about in there, which will be the topic for the next meeting, is a rebranding of the district with the logos for not only the district but also individual schools. And if you had a chance, you should go to, well, we can probably even share what she did in District 220, but it was at least a year-long process, I think, wasn't it, Morgan, where she went to each school and tried to create a logo that represented that school, but all the logos were very similar, and so you knew that if this logo came up, it came from a specific school, but it was also part of District 220. And so she's going to be working on that, and our next meeting will be kind of delving into the possibilities of the recreation and rebranding of our district. So did that cover it, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Questions? We've got action items to address, starting with the personnel report. May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the September 13, 2017 personnel report, including the following recommendations. Recommendation for disciplinary action, 3-day unpaid suspension and last change agreement for Henry Wetland. Recommendation for termination for Joy Saunders.
Second, please.
I second the motion.
Discussion? Roll call.
Kane.
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Samolka.
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Iannarino.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 17-921, adoption of the 2017-18 budget. May I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the adoption of the 2017-18 budget as presented.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
I think, Mike, were you going to go through your PowerPoint and show the board?
Yeah,
Or maybe the board doesn't need to see it, so if you've seen enough on it.
You've seen it twice, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Mike, I would just like to, I mean, I've seen it from before. In terms of this first, or 2017-18, with the numbers, and now you have more accurate numbers since the last time we've talked about enrollment and whatnot. In terms of personnel and teacher salaries under this particular year of the contract, have we met the goals that we had discussed about the savings on a year-to-year basis?
Yes, we have. There's a slide in the board packet. So when we did the 10-year teacher contract, we estimated teacher salaries for 10 years. And there's a slide in your packet tonight that shows what we estimated for 2017-2018. We estimated 880.035 FTE positions. We're at about 874. If I add in for the 6, basically, for the vacant CTC positions, the number that we're at this year compared to what we estimated 2 years ago, there's like a I think it's about a $7,000 difference. $7,000 difference.
That's the slide that says CTC salaries 2017-18 fiscal year. It's about 4 or 5 in.
So we've hit that number right on, which
that's great.
I'm surprised it's honestly that close myself. If it was, we hit it last year. Actually, we were under last year from what we anticipated we would be in 16-17. So we're right on 17-18. In fact, when 17-18 is all said and done, I've got an estimate in there for second semester degree changes, $100,000. We've already processed about $52,000 worth, which is in that salary number. So we probably won't spend all of that I have in there on the $100,000. So we'll even be below what we had estimated. So short answer to your question, have we hit that number? We've hit it right on, and we're actually a little bit below it as well.
It's good to know.
If you look at benefits, in terms of cost of benefits versus over the life of the contract, where are we with benefits? Because we show savings with salary. Are we also, commensurate with benefits where it balances itself out, or are we taking a hit on benefits and saving on salary?
We should be pretty close on benefits. Well, we've budgeted, we assume a 7% increase in benefits every year. I think this year it went up about 6.5%. And last year, I'd have to look at the number. I honestly don't remember what it was last year. But we're basically pretty close to right on budget where we're on benefits. We're not going up 15 or 20% on benefits, anything close to that. It may have gone up to 8% maybe one year, and then I'll get you a full answer before the next board meeting. But basically, right on where we think benefits are as well, too. We've made changes to benefits. We have a very active benefits committee that Lisa and I meet with CTC. We look at the level of benefits. We tweak it, we make changes to it. We changed the drug card for the 16-17 school year. That ended up saving us over $300,000, which goes into the whole calculation as well. So I think we're doing a fantastic job managing the benefits as well. So nothing out of the ordinary that's jumping out to say that we're not hitting our marks on that.
Those benefit numbers were the same, like you're saying 7%, you budgeted 7%. How long have you been budgeting for 7%? Has that been the practice for many years?
When I first came here, I used to budget 10%, but they never came in at 10%. so we reduced it to 7%, and if I recall, over the last 7 years, and we had some low years in there. Our average increase over a 7-year period was like 2.1%. Starting like in 2010-11 through 16-17. Some of those were a little bit lower. And it's an average. Some are lower, some a little bit higher. But over that 7-year period, they were under I'm going to say they're under 3%. I've got a spreadsheet back in my office, so we can look at the exact numbers, but, and I think I presented that to the board back in June as well, what the average increase is, but, so seven's a good number, I think, 10 is too high. I've heard for years, for the last 20 years doing this, that, medical inflation is 1% per month, 12% a year. I didn't see in my prior district, I have not seen that happen here as well, so I think 7% going forward is a good number as well.
Well, we're happy, because I know that when we put together the contract, there was a pretty painstaking, going through each single teacher and seeing what how they would go through the grid and going through everything and making your estimates based on taking each single teacher and seeing what the likelihood of their time through the district would be, and how many people would be leaving, and how many people would be taking different things. So I'm happy to see that your estimates have kind of come to fruition.
No, I appreciate it. And that's exactly what we did. We took all 880 teachers and we looked at their years of service in the district. We looked at their age, their retirement age, and we budgeted them for the next 10 years. We moved them through the salary grids. We know when they're going to retire, and that was the whole analysis that we did, which took us basically months to do that. But it's paid off because we are hitting our mark.
Great.
Mike, in the with the teacher schedule that was in the packet, there are some new teachers that show at a $39,000 starting salary, but they show up on the list and they have no sick days. Why do some teachers at that same point have sick days and some don't? Is that just
I'm not followed. So they don't have sick.
Just be a blank spot in the sick days. They'll have vacation days, but no sick days, but then others will have sick days and vacation days. I was wondering if there's a difference in
I'm not sure.
Contracts.
I'm just not sure what because the one slide I've got on there,
It wasn't in your slide.
Okay.
It was in data points that were in the salary schedule package. You know what I'm talking about, Lisa?
Yeah, for all certified staff,
Yes.
they should be allocated their sick days immediately.
Okay. So it was strange. It was just, and there were many of them that had no.
They don't have vacation, but they should have 12 sick days and 3 personal. And they are entitled to bereavement days if needed. But,
Right. It was specific to sick days. It was very strange looking.
Yeah, so maybe if you point that out to me, I think that was, if that was in there, that's an error. They don't get vacation days, but they automatically get sick days at the beginning of their career. They are prorated if they're not full-time, but.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
And I'd just like to recognize Ivy Fleming really quickly, if I could. Ivy is our supervisor of purchasing and budgeting. She's sitting about 4 or 5 rows back, and she's put a lot of time into the budget. As is Corey Boltemeyer. We're a team. We all work on it together, and without their assistance, we couldn't have put this budget together to present to the board tonight. So I just want to publicly recognize both of them and thank them for their efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if we need any other discussion or a roll call.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Border,
Aye.
Kane.
Aye. Motion carries. 17-922, approval of 2017-18 Board of Education annual goals. May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the revised 2017-18 Board of Education annual goals as presented. I'm excited about them.
Second.
Very exciting. Discussion?
These are basically goals that we had last month, except that we've added 2 dates to the goals to give a definitive time when they should be accomplished. Mr. Border asked me to do that, and I think after a little bit more reflection and time, we were able to do that. So that's the only changes that were made, and we're asking you to approve those goals for tonight.
All right. Roll call.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Border,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan.
Aye.
Motion carries. 17-923, change of date for the February 2018 board meeting.
I make a motion to approve changing the date of the February 2018 CCSD 15 regular Board of Education meeting from February 14th, 2018 to February 21st, 2018.
Second.
I second the motion.
Discussion? Roll call.
Shupai,
Aye.
Wong,
Aye.
Iannarino,
Aye.
Border,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Smolka.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 17930, the consent calendar. Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent calendar? No?
No.
All right. Motion to approve the consent calendar as it stands.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Long,
Aye.
Andreino,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Con,
Aye.
Smolka,
Aye.
Shupai.
Aye. Motion carries. Correspondence, Dr. Thompson?
Yes, we just had one request and/or response under the Freedom of Information Act during the period of August 4th through the September 7th date. On August 21st, 2017, a request was received from Mark Joseph. The response to this request was sent on August 22nd. We're catching up a little bit. We had 2 checks over the last, I think, 6 to 12 months from the Village of Hoffman Estates for impact fees for new homes. We received a check for $20,102.77 as a cash donation, and we also received a check for $67,490.40, which was a payout for a land contribution from the Village of Hoffman Estates. So $87,000, primarily from those homes in Bergman Farms.
Why do they call it payout for land contribution?
It's just the way that their contribution ordinance is written. So they either have to give us land to build a school or give us a cash amount to either be donated to work towards building a school or to buy land. And when a development is as small as Bergman Farms with 83, that's not small, but in comparison, we've had developments in the past where they've given us acres to build a school versus giving us cash donations. So these are cash donations in lieu of giving us land to build a school.
Gotcha. All right. May I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss collective and negotiating matters between the district and its employees or their representatives or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees.
May I have Want to read, you get the rest?
I wanted to write the statute.
Second. Great. All right, motion carries, executive session.